Hi Anoj, how are you?
Doing very well, Rahul. Good to see you all. Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this. I know you're extremely busy and I really appreciate the fantastic job that you've been doing over the years, especially now when we are in a pandemic situation and a lot of us need a platform like the one which you have built. With that, let me welcome you and pass it over to Sneha, who is our MC for the day.
Hi, Sneha.
Hey Anoj. Okay, thanks Rahul. We'll start with a short video.
We grew up with a lot of curiosity in our mind. Who am I? Why am I here? What is happiness? Am I happy? What is the purpose of this life? Individually, we know some of it. Collectively, we are trying to find all of it. We are a social media platform guiding people to find purpose in education and career, love and relationships, health and well-being. Together, let us transform the world into a better place. Let us start discovering our purpose. Come join hands. Ask questions. Share your story. Book a mentor. Find a job you love. Come share the journey of life.
Hello everyone, I'm Sneha Patil, your host for today. A warm welcome on behalf of Gyanalogy, and I am alumni-led initiative to today's Ask Me Anything session. As many of us grapple with the COVID-19 situation, Milaap is helping ordinary citizens to come together, pool money, and help India breathe. Ever wondered how crowdfunding works? Here's an opportunity to hear directly from the co-founder and president of Milaap, Mr. Anoj Viswanatahn. Mr. Anoj oversees campaigns, business development, digital marketing, and technology at Milaap. He had received 100% scholarship at National University of Singapore. He has been associated with the world of microfinance and business development through his professional roles with the Microfinance Society of Singapore, SKS Microfinance, ReEx Capital Asia, Delight Design, Frost and Sullivan, and Microappli. It is this experience of Anoj that led him to fully utilize the power of microfinancing for projects across the country through Milaap. He also features in the book From Engineering to Ikigai, written by the moderator Rahul Singh. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you, Mr. Anoj.
Thanks for having me here. Thanks, Rahul. Thanks, Sneha.
This session will be moderated by Rahul Singh, a banker by the day and writer by the night. He is the secretary of IIM Bangalore Alumni Association Singapore. He serves as the principal of Corporate Advisory Group of IIM Udaipur and is Academic Council Board member of Jaipuria Institute of Management. Rahul is initiator of Gyanalogy, IIM alumni-led initiative which aims to democratize wisdom. He has authored several books on purpose of life, such as You Know the Glory, Not the Story, From Engineering to Ikigai, and An Atheist Gets the Gita. We also have an additional request for today to please join us in saving an estimated over 8,000 lives by helping us raise 150,000 USD to purchase 180 oxygen concentrators. A group of NTU, SMU, and NUS alumni is running a campaign on Milaap to source 180 oxygen concentrators for India from overseas supplier. These oxygen concentrators shall be deployed on the ground to help COVID-19 patients struggling to get access to medical oxygen. With this, I would like to hand it over to Rahul.
Thank you so much, Sneha, and thank you, Anoj, so much, not only for coming here, but also helping us with the initiative that you're very much a part of, Mission Sumo, where a lot of us, including yourself, have come together to see what we can do in our capacities to help India breathe at this moment. So let me just go straight into the topic of discussion today, crowdfunding. So what exactly is crowdfunding? Could you just tell us a little bit about what is crowdfunding?
Sure. I think, while the term crowdfunding has caught, the popular attention in recent years, it's an age-old concept, right? It's a concept that goes back, to centuries, so to say. It's a very simple, the simple idea or premise behind crowdfunding is there is a common need that all of us want to achieve, and individually we may not have the resources to actually make that happen, but when we come together, that could, that is made possible, right? That's essentially crowdfunding, right? When people ask me, give me examples of crowdfunding, I say go back to your childhood, right? All of us have played, I mean, who has grown up in India, in their childhood, we have all played, let's say, cricket or football, every single afternoon in our summer. And more often than not, it's about, buying the balls, buying the bat, and all of those things per se, where, people, all of us come together, pitch in, $5, $10, and we make that happen, right? So it does not necessarily mean that it belongs to only one, it belongs to the collective. And that's essentially what crowdfunding is, people coming together to pool in resources and make something happen, right? Something, that has a collective good.
Sure, sure. So with regards to Milaap, what are the kind of crowdfunding initiatives that you help fund? Can you give some examples?
Sure. I think when we started Milaap per se, one of the things that we were very clear is the platform is primarily going to be utilitarian in its approach. And when I say utilitarian, it's something that people need on a, in their everyday lives, right? Which we, broadly define in various categories and causes and whatnot. But the fundamental premise is there is a need that we identify with, and if all of us come together, that can happen. And that could essentially mean that's a need for my family, that's a need for my friend, that's a need for the network, the society that I'm part of, or it's for the larger good, let's say for the nation, or in general the humanity itself. So when you take that approach, which is what we look at, what Milaap's purpose is, people raise money when their family member is down with a serious medical ailment, right? The cost of tertiary healthcare is so high that in a country like India, even insurance may not be able to cover for it, right? So people come together and they pool in small amounts of money so that that treatment can happen, because potentially what you are achieving, you are helping save a life, right? If I were to put it very bluntly. So people raise money for medical needs. People raise money in unfortunate scenarios, like a breadwinner has lost their lives, so they raise money in the form of memorials so that the family has support for in the future. Raise money for education needs. They raise for community activities, right? Part of a society. The lake that is in my neighborhood requires a restoration, so why don't we all pitch in some money to sort of ensure that we are able to achieve. So anything that you sort of consider as a utilitarian is something what people use Milaap for, to raise money.
Right, right. So and that brings me to my last question. I only ask 3 questions to my guest usually. And my last question to you is, and it's a bit of a personal question to you, why did you start Milaap? And let me just qualify that with saying that a lot of people believe that if you're coming from a middle class, or if you're coming from upper middle class family, you necessarily have the finances to, let's say, take care of a medical emergency or any other contingency that happens in your life. Now, could you share something? I know there is an emotional connect there. Personally, you have a story there. Why did you start Milaap, and what are some of the misconceptions people have about covering expenses, let's say medical expenses?
Sure. So, I mean, to answer the first question, why did we start Milaap? I don't have one aha moment that, made me realize that, this is what I want to do. I think all of our lives, whatever we do, in our lives, it's essentially based on a series of events, something that we are conscious about. Most of these we are, not really conscious about, that actually drives our purpose and, make us do what we do. So same with, for me, I grew up in a fairly, upper middle class family in Coimbatore, so the tier 2 city. I did my schooling there, grew up in the suburbs of Coimbatore, so got to see, I got to see life, even though that wasn't like what I was consciously looking for, right? So, I got to see people of all walks of life. I, used public transport to go to school, went to one of the best schools there, and a chance scholarship took me to Singapore to pursue my undergrad. And that's when, the perspective sort of widened in terms of what it means to have access to opportunities, right? Which you don't realize until until you are put in a larger canvas per se. And same way, I mean, pursued a lot of things in Singapore, and, just whether it's fate or whether it's destiny, had to come back to India, after 4+ years, and ended up working in a microfinance company per se. And that's where I realized three things. One, how small amounts of capital can make a profound impact in the lives of people. I mean, even something like 500 rupees, 1,000 rupees. So microfinance, for those who are not, find it new, it's essentially providing small amounts of capital to people to, sort of help them build their livelihoods and, sort of, help them, move up the economic ladder, if we were to put it, right? And without any sort of expectations, without any sort of collaterals or any of those per se. So here we were looking at, people who were sort of getting small amounts of money, like 5,000 rupees, 7,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, and were actually able to make, a meaningful difference in their lives and in the lives of their family members and so on. So how small amounts of money can actually have an impact. That was number one. The second one was how it was a struggle even for people, a large majority of people, to have access to this money. I mean, at an individual level, 3,000 or 5,000 might look like a very small sort of an, amount that we could all, do away with. But there were huge segments of people who did not have access to that kind of capital. And the third piece, as a result of two, was it required a new form of approach towards money and how we perceive money to actually have, to solve for 1 and 2, which is, to have a profound impact in the lives of people with, small amounts of money. So the traditional way of looking at it, while was making difference, wasn't completely sort of covering for all segments of people and all kinds of things that, things that people needed. And that's essentially the idea of crowdfunding came in, because, it's a new, if I were to put it, it's a new form of capital, right? It's people powered capital per se, with no expectations attached, except that the money should be put to use for the intended purpose with which, I am giving, right? And that's essentially how we started Milaap. Some experience from, growing up with what I saw when I was working in microfinance in 2008 to 2010. That led us to start Milaap the way, I mean, it has evolved over the years. We've been around for 11 years. When we started out, it was primarily a rural to urban, divide, connecting the rural to urban populations. But I think over the years, we've also realized that no matter in which strata of society, economic strata you are in, there are moments and things, scenarios in life where you would need the collective support of people around you, be it your friends, be it your family members, be it your colleagues, extended, even strangers per se. And Milaap essentially is an enabler for the same. I mean, we are just in the background, ensuring that it happens, but it's primarily the people who power the platform.
Right. So you stressed upon this people-powered capital a lot, and Gyanalogy is also very democratic in its approach. We are basically powered by collective wisdom of everybody around, and with that, I would like to invite people in this panel to ask any questions if they have to Anuj. Who would like to go first? If you have a question to Anuj, please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, while they are thinking, let me ask you some question. So you talked about this idea of crowdfunding being always around with us. Even when we were children, we would pool in money to buy, let's say, buy a bat or buy a football. But now, how is technology bringing a new dimensions to this? So what is the innovation that Milaap brings to the table?
Sure. I think, one of the things that, I've realized building, the platform over the years is the technology is only the enabler. The real challenge or the real, a real focus essentially is solving for the behavioral aspects of, crowdfunding, as opposed to the, the technology is only something that enables per se. And when I say that, while it might sound very, interesting and, so effortless, so to say, hey, I have a need. I have 500 friends on Facebook. I am very popular in LinkedIn, whatnot. I have colleagues who always sort of, support me or we hang out with, and I have this need. So, they will support. While that is true, the first challenge when it comes to, even thinking about crowdfunding is asking for money is very hard, right? No matter whether it's, small amounts or big amounts, or it's irrespective of the amount, because there is a lot of behavioral things that come into picture. People don't use Milaap as the first avenue when they have an emergency or a need, right? It's probably the last avenue that they use. So let's say somebody has a medical emergency. They're not thinking, okay, I have an emergency, let me just go put it up on Milaap and ask people the money. No, they're probably thinking, how much money do I have in my savings? How much does my insurance cover for, right? How much debt can I take, to tide over this? And only when they realize, hey, all of this put together is still not going to cover for what I need at this point in time, do they even say, okay, let me go out there and seek people's help in supporting, right? So there is this perception that, you have an emergency, or you have a need, why don't you just put it up? Most people who raise, overwhelming majority of them, they raise because this is probably the last resort. They raise because they know their individual efforts to make something happen is probably not enough, which is why they are seeking other support. So asking for money is hard. The second piece of this equation is offering support to somebody who is in need is harder. So we know scenarios where, let's say, we grew up together, we studied in the same school, now we are in different countries. And I know for a fact that my friend who is in a different country, with whom I'm on touch over Facebook, or let's say, or Twitter, whatever, social media channels are, I know that he's going through a bad phase, right? I know that, there is a challenge that he's trying to overcome. But for me to actually make that, take that step towards saying, hey, how can I support you? Or how can I support you monetarily? Which is even a bigger challenge. It's one thing to say, hey, how can I support you? It's another thing to say, I want to support you monetarily, let me know how. That's a bigger challenge. So asking for money is hard, right? Offering to support someone monetarily is even harder. And that's where the role of Milaap comes. We make it easy for people to ask. There's a sort of dignity and respect that is attached when somebody is sort of putting it up on a platform, right? It's not necessarily just saying that, please help or whatever. You are able to provide the context, you are able to, communicate, and you are able to communicate in a way by which, people can come in and offer without feeling awkward about it, right? And that's the role of Milaap, as I see. One is on the behavioral side, right? The second piece is essentially making it easy. And when I say making it easy, the traditional sort of digital is essentially, all things that are now digital is essentially what do you call? It's essentially built on your offline experiences, right? You are making that, there is a traditional, approach that is, allowed, be it in the way we order food or buy groceries or buy tickets or whatever it is. Digital only removes the friction and makes it easier. In Milaap's role, it's essentially saying that, hey, if you were to sort of do this one, you'd probably reach out to 5 or 6 of your closest friends, closest family members, colleagues, etc., who would offer you the support. But what if we were able to sort of help you reach out to 200 of your friends, 200 of your colleagues, right? In a way where it's a no strings attached, in the sense that, hey, if people want to support you, they would support you. If they don't, no harm done. That ability to sort of reach, and those folks are able to sort of reach in their sort of networks per se. Hey, I'm contributing to, more often than not, it's like I'm contributing because of 2 reasons. I know the person who is in need, or I know the person who is asking me to support, right? So that whole idea of, ability to reach a wider circle is what crowdfunding enables. So that's my, I think that's essentially our role, apart from the usual stuff, which is to provide convenience, to make it seamless, to ensure that there is trust in the system. These are all things that every, whether it's crowdfunding or any other business, has to sort of do. But specifically to crowdfunding and Milaap, it's essentially, solving for that problem. Hey, how do I make it less? I'm not saying how do I make it easier for people to ask. I'm saying, how do I make it less harder for people to ask? Because asking for money is hard, right? So yeah, that's where we see our role as. Yeah, and technology also plays a role.
Sure. So Anoj, Chetan has a question, but before I go to his question, I'll just pick up something that you said. You said you make it easy, or let's say you make it less hard for people to asking for money. Now, let me also flip it from the other side and say that, do you also make it easy for people to give?
Yes.
So what is it that motivates people to give? Can you shed some light on why do people give?
Yeah, I think, see, the question, giving is an ingrained behavior, ingrained human behavior, just like any other behavior that we can think of. Giving is what makes us human, right? So, it's not the question of, whether people want to give, but the question essentially is, how do we make it easy for people to give? And there are 2 things that come into picture. One is essentially convenience. The second one is essentially trust, right? Convenience is, yes, I want to support this person at this point in time. And all of them are driven by a sense of urgency, right? They are driven by a sense of urgency to say, okay, this person needs it, so I want to do it right now, right? It's not like this person needs it, okay, let me, mark it down in my calendar, probably 15 days down the line, I'll probably revisit this and do it. No, not really. It's about, okay, he wants it, I'll do it if I have the means, of course. Otherwise they would say, okay, when I have the means, I will probably follow. So when somebody is in that mindset, how do you make it convenient? Which is, ensuring that the platform works seamlessly, provide them for various kinds of options, payment options, make it as effortless as possible, right? Not ask 100 different questions when somebody wants to, sort of contribute. The questions that you need to ask for somebody who wants to contribute, let's say 5,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees, is very different from somebody who wants to sort of contribute via an institutional giving of, let's say, 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs. There are two different sets of people, right? So when you're looking at the individual, you make it easy, you make it convenient, frictionless, because I might try once, I might try twice, I try the third time and it still doesn't function, then I probably say, okay, hey, you know what? This probably is not the best way to go. Might as well figure out an alternate way, maybe reach out to the person directly and give. So convenience is number one. The trust is, if I were to be a person who does not know the person who's in need or know the person who is asking for money, can I trust that, but I want to contribute towards this cause, right? This cause resonates with me. This particular person's need resonates with me, but I don't know this person. And I don't know the person who has also asked me. I've just come across this, right? So how do I go about it? That's where the platform and the platform's, past work and credibility comes into picture. Okay, so if I were to contribute through this platform, I know for a fact that it would reach the intended recipient for the intended purpose, right? And trust doesn't get built overnight. It's, years of work. Like, to be very honest, this is our 11th year, right? We started in 2010. We complete 11 in June, almost 11 years per se. It took us 3 years to raise the first 1 crore or 10 million rupees as donations through the platform. It took us 7 years from the beginning to cross 100 crores per se, right? Which is like 1 billion rupees. And here we are now, almost 1,300 crores, which means 13 billion rupees in the 11th year. So you could see it took us 3 years to raise the first 10 million. And it took us 7 years to cross the first billion. And now we are at 13 billion at the 11th year. So, only because of, it's because of the trust that we have been able to build over the years. It just didn't happen overnight. So these are the two things that we do: convenience and trust.
So I'll just pick on that trust thing, and I will say that being a broker for that trust, somebody who is trusted in doing what they are, that is a very, very important commodity, and not just in our not even as a company, even as individuals, right? When we are working in offices, when you are entrusted with something, and even the campaign that we are running, you and I are in this together, the Sumo campaign, you talked about raising 1 crore in 3 years. And because you have that credibility, you have built that trust, we were able to raise almost 1 crore for Sumo in just 1 week. We are almost there. So I totally understand when you're talking about building trust and how trust is a feedback mechanism which builds onto itself, and then suddenly you start seeing that hockey stick and you see that this platform becomes bigger than it probably was initially envisioned to be. But with that, there are a few questions. So Chetan has a question. Chetan is 1992, I am Bangalore, incidentally happens to be the place where you were incubated as Milaap. So he has a question, and then Purnima has a question. Purnima runs a company called The Ideas in Singapore, which is responsible for bringing a lot of Indians together through multiple fabulous events she does. So Chetan, could you go ahead first and then followed by Purnima?
Yeah, thanks, Rahul. I missed the first part of your presentation, but I think you are doing a good job. I've used the platform myself, especially in this COVID times, to make donations. So 2 questions from my side. One is, that there are so many fundraisers which are going on, especially related to COVID. How do you make sure that all these are actually genuine, fundraisers? Because obviously there's so many of them, and what kind of mechanisms do you have in place to ensure that they are genuine? And the second is, in your platform, you have fundraising, but you also need to show impact. And I think that is a very important thing as well, that listen, that, this was a fundraiser which was carried out on this thing, and this is the impact which it has actually resulted in. So I just want to first ask as a question, and the second, your thoughts around showing impact on your platform as well. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
The answer, thanks, Chetan. I think the answer to both 1 and 2 are connected, which draws from the fundamental premise of Milaap, right? The fundamental premise of Milaap is to build provide a platform that is decentralized, democratized, and distributed when it comes to our approach. So the reason I say this is, and I'll explain what each of this mean, is when we started out in 2010, what we realized were, there were avenues for people to sort of give online, right? Which is essentially give to a charity website, which is doing great work, by themselves and so on, right? There were so many sort of, big charities who were doing work, and, they were able to mobilize money online. But what we realized was there weren't enough avenues for individuals who want to sort of, raise money either for their needs or for their local community needs, as we are now seeing per se, as well as for smaller collectives, non-profits, and institutions of varying kind per se, right? Which is where our fundamental premise essentially came from. This is Milaap is an enabler, is a collective enabler. The actual fundraising is distributed across so many people doing so many initiatives on the ground, right? So if you were to, so for example, we have a landing site for COVID related initiatives, which is milaap.org/COVID-19. You would see, like, I think there are around 15,000 plus initiatives, right? Run by different kinds of people, run by like big companies and brands like Amazon and Uber and Swiggy and whatnot, Teach for India and whatnot on one side. And you would have a large number of, people, individuals who are saying, I'm raising money to procure 20 oxygen cylinders in whatever, right? In JP Nagar, or to help the urban slums of Koramangala, etc. Right? That's essentially what we call as decentralized. We don't determine that this person, should only be the one raising money. This person shouldn't be. But what we determine in common for all of them, which comes to the whole question around genuinity, is there are 2 things that we look for. Who is the intended recipient of this money, right? So there are broadly 3 people in a campaign, right? The person who is raising the money, whom we call as the campaign organizer, the person or the group or the entity that benefits, which is essentially what we call as the beneficiary, and the person or the entity that receives the money, which is essentially what we call as the recipient, right? So typical use case could be, I am raising money for my friend's son's treatment, right? So I am the campaign organizer. My friend will be the recipient of the money, right? And his son is essentially the beneficiary. He benefits from this whole thing, right? So when it comes to genuinity, we verify all 3 antecedents, which is who is raising money for whom, right? So what is the relationship between the campaign organizer and the beneficiary? What is the relationship between the beneficiary and the recipient, right? And when I say verify, we essentially is, varying levels per se, right? From KYC checks to actually seeing that if somebody says, this is my son, we try to actually have KYC checks to ensure that that relationship is established and so on. So does the intended beneficiary exist? And is the intended purpose true? So all 3 of them can be there, but let's say I'm raising money for my friend's son's cancer treatment. Do they have cancer? Is that because that's essentially the purpose? Can we verify whether that's the case? That's essentially what we do, right? On the background per se. So there are varying levels of checks that we do, which is right from, somebody starts a fundraiser and, Rahul knows it and people who have raised know it. We do a certain set of checks before they can withdraw funds. They can start raising because of the urgency, but we do a certain set of checks before they can withdraw funds. And during the withdrawal process, there are certain checks that we do to ensure that whoever they're, sort of transferring the money to solves for the intended recipient for the intended purpose, right? So that's essentially how we go about doing our entire verification. All of this runs in the background while people do the fundraising, so to speak. The second piece around updates, which is also the collective impact per se. The nature of what we do, which is essentially decentralized and distributed. So each of these updates that we are speaking about will be at those individual fundraiser level, right? Like for example, Sumo is raising money for procuring 180 concentrators, right? There might be somebody else who is raising money to procure, I don't know, oxygen cylinders. And there might be somebody else who is raising money to just provide, food or whatever relief for the patients who are, currently quarantined, etc. So each of this impact is at an individual sort of a fundraiser level, right? It's very sort of hard to sort of say, collectively. So we measure our collective impact by two things: the amount that we have raised, the number of fundraisers, the locations where this money have gone. So these are all the things that we can sort of, objectively give, data on. But when it comes to the intended purpose as to how many, XYZ activities happened or ABC happened, it's all at the individual fundraiser level, simply because it's a very distributed and decentralized approach to fundraising, right? So those are the two things. We simply because, and most important, Milaap as such does not execute any of the on-ground activities per se, right? We are a platform. We enable people to raise money so that they can execute, they can, do whatever is required for them to sort of do. And, we sort of be that platform which, allows people to communicate, to ensure that it is actually happening and so on. But we ourselves don't execute stuff on the ground.
Thank you, Anuj. Purnima, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon. Congrats to Gyanalogy and Milaap for a lovely Saturday chat. Good work, guys. I had two questions, but my first question is almost answered because it was similar to what Chetan asked. One very specific question, Anuj, I have. One of my friend, he owns an art gallery in Singapore, and he has almost $500,000 worth of artist paintings. These are from prominent 50+ artists all over the world. So can these kind of campaigns run on Milaap? Because this is something different from what I've usually seen on crowdfunding things. This is basically they will have to buy the painting and all the proceeds goes to a NGO.
Yes, we've actually launched this feature. It's serendipity that you bring this up. We just launched this a couple of weeks back, where the fundamental premise is how can people give their time or skills which can translate into financial resources for a cause, right? That's the fundamental premise with which we sort of built a new offering. It's in private beta because we want to ensure that get it right. So would love to sort of chat with you offline to see how we can enable this.
Sure. If I can I'll take a number from Rahul and give a chat, because this is something very interesting and a new campaign which can work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah? Thanks so much and great work, Rahul.
Thank you, Purnima. Any other questions? Okay, so Anuj, while more questions pour in, I'll throw you a question.
Sure.
You studied computer engineering at NUS.
Actually, that's not true. I studied mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineering. I'm so
Somewhere
sorry.
that I studied computer engineering. No.
So how much?
I barely managed to scrape through my level 1 C programming course, thanks to my, the generosity of my prof. So I'm as far away from computer engineering academically, so to say. Yeah.
Right. And so my question then is even more interesting then. As a mechanical engineer who deals with gears and motors and crankshafts, how much of that do you use at Milaap?
See, I think this is my joke that I try to always insert where possible. So let me try that again. So when you don't know what to do in life, you study engineering, right? When you don't know what engineering to study, you study mechanical engineering, right? So that's essentially what that's essentially how I ended up in, doing mechanical engineering per se. I think the only things that have, remained constant is the approach, the line of thought in, sort of taking, solving for a particular problem, right? You essentially, there is a certain sort of thinking that comes, there is a certain, you're trained to sort of think in a particular way, right? Break down problems into smaller components and try to see which of these are modular, and how you address each of those in a particular way. I think that's the only takeaway that I have from my 4 years of engineering, so to say. But beyond that, yeah, very
Right.
little. I remember nothing. So
Okay. Interesting. I normally say that what I remember from engineering, I can put on the back of a stamp. So that's one of my jokes. Thank you for sharing your joke. Okay. So another question that I have is, you obviously grew up in Coimbatore in India, then you moved to Singapore. You spent good amount of time in Singapore, and then you went back to India. Do you see any difference in the way these two countries operate, or in the way people in these two places think?
that's a bit of a googly, I would say. I think, see, the way I would look at it is, personally speaking, I think, a place like Singapore, sort of shows you what is possible, right? What is possible when collectively everybody adheres to, a higher standard, to a purpose, even though individually it may not benefit them all of the times, right? I think that's like my learning from, living in Singapore, right? We're all sort of, we're all frustrated about the long queues, and for a bait in the evening 6 p.m. queues in the, in the Raffles MRT or in the, City Hall, but we adhere to it because collectively it benefits all of us, even though individually it might affect us in the short term. I think that's essentially the biggest learning in India. The thing that you see is, as an individual, you have the opportunity to make a difference, no matter what the challenges are or what, the systems look like. If you have something that you want to do, you have something that you want to execute, you can make that difference, right? You don't need to, you don't need somebody's approval or, permission to go do about it, right? So that's essentially what you are seeing in the form of, I mean, the extrapolation of that is essentially what you're seeing in the form of, in general, about entrepreneurship, and so many companies, so many civil sector organizations, NGOs. And when we talk about entrepreneurship, everybody thinks about the big startups and in the unicorns, but all these NGOs, all these small non-profits, all these collectives, they are all entrepreneurial, which is essentially what we are seeing today, right? Nobody is just resigned to the fact that, oh, this should have happened, that should have happened. Everybody is saying, okay, what is it that I can do in my capacity to actually make an impact, to mitigate some of the problems that people around me are facing. So that's essentially what I would say, is my learning or whatever my understanding from, different cultures.
Right. So there was a reason I threw that googly, and there was a method to madness. It's like you obviously are quite successful in India. When are you setting your foot back into Singapore, starting something in Southeast Asia? Are there any plans for that? And that's why I asked you, are culturally these two countries so different that you don't plan to look in India or look in Singapore? Or is it because you like to focus on one geography, or geography in India itself is a big challenge?
I think, yes. So I know most entrepreneurs talk about or say that, global domination and, we want to, be everywhere, etc., etc. But I'm somebody who believes that, if there is a problem that you're addressing right now is big enough and, and is interesting for you to sort of, to solve or take a stab at solving, continue doing that, right? As opposed to saying, let me, there's this quote that I love from the Basecamp founder, DHH. He says, when, everybody starts by saying that they want to make a dent in the universe, and over a period of time, they'll say, no, I just want the entire universe in my fist, right? So I think, at least personally, I just want to make not even a dent. I just want that whatever I'm doing is exciting. And at the moment, what we are doing here in India, is big enough, hard enough for us to remain excited and to be driven. And it's not easy, right? I mean, like I said, anybody can build a platform, anybody can sort of integrate with, payment gateways and other things per se, but understanding the culture, understanding the nuances, right? Understanding how trust works. Each of this is different in different sort of cultures and countries. Even Southeast Asia cannot be looked at as one. What you see in Indonesia will be different from what you see in Philippines, will be different from what you see in Malaysia, and so on. So I think there should be many more platforms solving for each of their, and I do know of platforms that are doing, many more platforms solving for in each of their countries, in each of their sort of geographies, as opposed to, one platform saying that I'm going to go for global. Yeah.
So your answer reminded me of Shah Rukh Khan when somebody approached him to act in Hollywood because he was such a big star in Bollywood. He says that I would invite them to come and make a movie with me in Bollywood, and then there is the other route which Priyanka Chopra took, which is she went to Hollywood. So I understand where you're talking about entrepreneurs trying to own the entire universe versus making a dent. Some people looking more into their individual geographies, some people trying to think more globally. So thank you so much for sharing that perspective. We have few questions. So JP Jaswal has a question followed by Piyush. So JP, could you go ahead?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, Rahul.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good morning to Anoj.
Hi, JP, yes.
Yeah, you both are doing a great job, I mean, with undoubtedly. And it is very timely that, you have organized this session, which is going to certainly help in many, in this time of need. My question is very specific. And I just want to know, like to provide targeted and effective solutions like providing oxygen concentrator or oxygen cylinders. I'm getting a lot of help requirement from institutions, like some hospitals or some organizations. Those are involved in providing all these facilities. They are sort of oxygen concentrator and all those things. So I was just wondering, I mean, financial provision is very easy. People have money, but they don't have these facilities. Is there any way, are you all organizing a targeted effort to facilitate this, and how to go about it?
Can I take that question?
Please.
Yeah. So as you rightly pointed out, at the moment, there are a lot of organizations, a lot of people who are trying to raise funds, and they have raised enormous amount of fund. But the challenge actually in the whole piece, as even Anoj was mentioning, is not just collecting funds and making sure that you have enough fund. It's more about deployment. So in our case, the initiative that was shared at the beginning of this session, which is SUMO, Singapore University's Mission Oxygen, we are a bunch of about 12 people who have come together with varying expertise, right from logistics to procurement to deployment, to make sure that we are able to procure oxygen concentrators globally, wherever it is. So we have procurements from Netherlands, from Thailand, from China. And then once we have procured those, once we have gotten control of those, we are then looking how to ship it to India. So for that, we have specific people who are experts in supply chain, who, as we talk, are in negotiations with big companies to see if we could ship it free of cost through some of the network that we have. And then on ground, we have alumni who are doing phenomenal work for past several years, and Anuj knows some of these people, to make sure that people on the ground are getting the benefit of these oxygen concentrators. So these are people who are working in healthcare kind of NGOs. So as you rightly pointed out, JP, it is not enough to just raise money. It is that probably is, I would say, in the whole grand scheme of things, I would not say it's easy, but it's like it is a problem that is solvable. The bigger problem comes with planning, and trust me, I've been doing this like for the past 10 days. And it is almost like running a company, doing a KYC on the organization that is giving you, checking if the deployment can be had, then speaking to customs, speaking to bureaucrats. It is like mind blowing. And that is why what Anuj has managed to do at doing these things at scale. I mean, I'm finding it difficult just to run our own little project that we have. And he is doing this for like thousands like us. So doing KYC on this, making sure it's going to the right recipients. Of course, there would be leakages, but the scale at which he is doing is phenomenal. So JP, to answer your question, yes, that is a challenge. When you come up, even with the most altruistic of the mission, you have a lot of these challenges as to making sure that whatever you intend to do, first of all, gets done, and B, is actually channelized in the right direction. I'm not sure if I managed to answer your question, but if Anuj wants to take another stab at it, then he may pitch in.
No, Rahul, I think you spot on. Like I told before, at least in the current current scenario and the current challenges that we are facing, I think money is probably the I won't say the easiest, but it's the less harder thing to sort of solve for. There are a lot of other things which is around infrastructure that you spoke about, and ensuring that the supplies come on time, and these are all the challenges that we are trying to sort of solve on the go. And from our end, in terms of what we are doing, etc., is to make that process easier. Like while we do not work with suppliers, we do not work with vendors, or we do not sort of solve for those logistics. If there are those people who are identified, then how do we make sure that they get the money quickly and they can ship it quickly, etc. So that's the piece that I work, or my team actually works with all these campaign organizers and these folks, to ensure that there are no bottlenecks from that side.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, good for your clarifications, both of you. But I just wondering, because it's a very complementary role both of you are playing. Let's say Anuj is able to facilitate the funds part of it. Let's say for targeted and effective distribution of these equipments and all. And of course, Rahul is doing a great job to do the logistic part of it. So let's say some of the organizations, those are sort of these things and they really need it, and we know that these are genuine cases. How can we make them to either connect either side? I mean, looks like more to Rahul rather than so much Anuj can be connected by Rahul to do the job. Yeah. So let's say fund wise and all required. So how it should go?
Yeah. Let me explain. So Anuj talked about trust. So trust is very important, and in our case, I'll just take my example and then probably I'll broaden it to answer your question. In our case, we knew that people trust us because of our individual brand equity and also because of the university that we graduated from, and That is how we brought people together around this theme of the university. Hey guys, we have all graduated from the same university, including Anuj. Why don't we come together on this cause? But once you are the custodian of that kind of trust, there is so much more onus on you to deliver, because you cannot, individually you can fail, but collectively when you are trying to do something, you just cannot afford to fail. So in our case, what we did is we ensured that we have expertise within the team who can actually, first of all, get the equipments we want, B, ship the equipment we want, and the C, the last part that you're talking about, who is going to benefit from it. So only when we had solved for all these three, we set up a campaign. We said, hey, you are donating for this. This is what we will do. This is where it will go. But to answer your question directly, there are so many of these funds that have been created, which are in the reverse situation right now, which have funds, probably are at the moment working out the logistics of getting these equipments. But once they have that, they would still be needing people on the ground, such as NGOs that you mentioned, who can deploy. Because at the moment, we're talking about tier 1 and tier 2 cities at best. We're talking about cities like Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi. But what about small towns? What about small places? Nobody's talking about it, but not that people are not dying there because of lack of oxygen, just that the media doesn't have attention of it. So definitely people are looking for people who are working on the ground and can help deploy this. So after this talk is over, maybe you can connect with me offline, and I'll try to help you connect with some of these guys who have the reverse problem, so as to say. So maybe that would help you, JP.
Okay, thank you very much, Rahul.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
So Piyush has a question, then Sneha has a question, and then Karthik has a question. So we are now pouring with questions. So very quickly, over to you, Piyush.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Anoj. Thanks, Rahul. And I mean, you guys are doing some amazing good work with a very good positive impact on ground. So my question goes like this. Yesterday in my common WhatsApp city group, somebody posted a message that father's son, blah, 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 is suffering from liver cancer. Please donate at this link. And I ended up donating 1,000 rupees. Now today in the morning, it was on Keto. Now Keto is also showing that this fundraiser is under review. And when I asked a few questions to that person who had posted that link, that show me the bills, show me the doctor's prescriptions, that person blocked me. He threw me out of the group. So now I am feeling guilty of donating 1,000 rupees. So what suggestions you can give me as a user, as a donator, what XYZ steps I can take, in order to establish the sanctity of a fundraiser?
Got it.
Okay. Anuj, you want to take that, or shall I take that?
No, I'll tell anyway. I should address that per se, and then you can always add on it. I think the immediate piece that we always do, right? There are two things that we always do. One is when it comes to specifically on Milaap, whether you're a donor, whether you are just a user, or you're not even a user on Milaap, you've just come across a link. If you think that something is suspicious, right, on the platform, for whatever reasons, you did not get a response, the person, what the person is going through, and it is not what they claim to be, and all of those per se, right? There is a option which says report fundraiser on the platform, which is essentially a priority escalation team that looks into any of these campaigns that get reported, right? You report the fundraiser with the details like that you just mentioned, right? Which is to say, hey, I tried doing this, I saw something similar. How do I don't have a good, view of this, or I think there's more to what meets the eye. That's priority on top of our additional reviews that is done as a priority review, right? That's number one. And that's a focus for us that will continue to focus, just like how we raise, or we enable people to raise money from the crowd. Most of our, apart from whatever we have built as our, checks and balances, we also rely on the crowd to sort of flag any suspicious activity or any suspicious, behavior. And when that happens, immediately a step of, depending upon the severity of what the report is, it starts from anywhere from just pausing the fundraising all the way to suspending the page and refunding all donors and all of those per se. So and banning the person from the platform and so on and so forth, to even pursuing legal avenues, which we do when we realize that there has been a malintent and it has not been what they've claimed it to be. So nature of the severity determines the the action that we take. The second one, essentially, as a donor, and this is something that we tell, and we are open to all donors per se. As a donor, you have, and even we mention it in your emails and all that stuff, which says if you want a refund of your donation at any given point in time, you are always welcome, and with a reason to say that yes, this is the reason, which could range from anything from saying that I wanted to give 10,000 rupees but I ended up giving 20,000 rupees. Now I want a refund of the remaining amount. Or it could be the fact that, hey, what you mentioned, right? I tried reaching the campaign organizer, he didn't respond, so I'm not sure whether this money is going for the intended purpose. Any of these reasons, and we don't have what is a right reason or wrong reason. We just want to understand what, because it helps us become better. Without any questions, the donation will get refunded. So these are the two things that we have in place. One is, at any point in time, whether you're a user, visitor, or a donor, you can flag any suspicious activity, and that will be prioritized in terms of reviews. And depending upon the severity of what you're flagging and the nature of the issue at hand, it could range from pausing the fundraiser until things are complete, all the way to pursuing legal options. That's number one. Number two, donors have the right to come and ask for a refund at any given point in time, with and stating why they would like to. No questions asked, we would refund.
Sure.
So the two things that we have on Milaap. Yeah.
So I wanted to add one more layer on that, and this is more related to the era in which we live, where social media is very powerful. But as with anything which is powerful, it is like a double-edged sword, right? Like a knife in a hand of a surgeon is life-saving, but in a hand of a thief is potentially can take your life. So whatever forwards you receive on WhatsApp, maybe the onus is on us. We need to do a little bit of more due diligence to go ahead and see if this is really what it is supposed to be. Now, I know that it's not always 100% possible, but it is a bit like, let's say there is a European company and that outsources its production to some other country in Vietnam or Bangladesh or India. And that company which is outsourced then uses child labor or any other malpractices. It's not that the responsibility of that source company in Europe ceases just because it has outsourced. So same with us, right? When we are getting these forwards, and I always see people say forwarded as received, your responsibility doesn't end there. I mean, you cannot say forwarded as received and say that, hey, I just forwarded what I got. We collectively, we are living in an age where there is a glut of information. There is so much information that comes in. But when we are supporting a cause, I think we do have a little bit of onus to go ahead and check and be convinced that, hey, I think this is right. You can still be wrong in your judgment, but then we have to go that extra mile to make sure that we are doing our part as conscious citizens. Now Sneha has a question, then Karthik has a question, and then Ujjwal has a question, and I know Anuj is short on time, so we'll only take those many, and then any more questions you can write to Anuj. I will share his email. So Sneha, go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks, Rahul. It has been a pleasure to hear both of you. Anuj, I wish that Milaap is able to cross 100 billion rupees fundraising soon. So changing the lens slightly. So the question that I have is, are there any regulations which Milaap has to, like follow in terms of, let's say, if the threshold of money donated by the donor goes beyond a certain point to kind of, validate the source of money, or on those lines, and especially like in cross-border or transactions or regulations?
Yes, I mean, there are many. I mean, that's another entire session. I'm more happy to address those one-on-one in terms of based on who is raising the money. Is it for a charity? Is it for an individual? For a specific purpose, etc. Yeah, I won't do justice in a 3-minute summary of sorts, because these are regulations, so I don't want to just give a summary of those. But very happy to sort of, yes, we comply with a bunch of things that we have to do to make this happen, and more than happy to take this offline and address any specific things.
Thanks, Anuj. Karthik, do you want to ask a question directly into to Anuj? I know you have typed it to me, but do you want to voice it out? Otherwise, I will be your mouth.
No, I think it's a pretty simple question. Yeah, how you run your business, right? So you don't charge platform fee. How is it monetized, or at least like bare minimum to run your infrastructure?
Sure. I think we, last year is when we decided to sort of make the platform free, or rather the simpler communication is free fundraising, because it's easy for everybody to understand. But what we actually are is pay what you wish fundraising platform, which is essentially we ask the donors and the campaign organizers, if you are happy with the service, or if you feel that we are doing we are doing a purpose that we are doing something that fulfills your purpose, you are free to add an optional tip amount as such, right? Which is a voluntary tip amount. So that's essentially our model that we have been pursuing since last year. I think last year's the first impact of COVID is when, so throughout the history of Milaap, for all disaster relief and issues of national emergency, we have never charged fees. We waive off our platform fees. And then we decided to do this for all campaigns and all causes last year, simply because we realized that more and more such scenarios are coming. And secondly, more and more people are interested in sort of, taking the initiative and raising money, or, contributing, etc. We didn't want a fixed fee to sort of create any hesitancy in the minds of people, right? Rather than saying, even before our fixed whatever fee was a percentage of the funds raised, we said 5% of the funds raised we take as a fee, right? Which is very nominal, but we still felt that there might be hesitancy. Why is it 5? Why is it not 4? Why is it not 3? And so on. So we didn't want to we rather said that, hey, you know what? Some people perceive our work to be much more valuable than 5. Some people might feel that their money is better off going to the cause than the platform. And both are okay. At the end of the day, we are here to serve a larger purpose. So we make this as a pay what you wish fundraising platform. So Anuj, it's easy to communicate, just like, I don't know if you are in Singapore.
Lakshmi.
You are? Anna Lakshmi, right? So yeah, it's, you can eat what you want, you don't have to pay anything fixed, but people do pay. And there have been times I'm a sort of a there have been times where I have been a beneficiary of Anna Lakshmi's, model. I used to, sort of, when I was an intern in the Raffles Place City Hall, one of those investment boutiques and other places. I used to go to Lau Pasa, and there used to be a Anna Lakshmi stall. I don't know if it's still there, where, you get to eat and you pay whatever you wish to pay. And, I used to, pay a very nominal amount, only to realize that, you see other people coming in, people who are working in the construction and, all those folks who are coming in, and they used to just, and the stall owner used to just refuse taking money from them. They just say, take what you want, eat what you want. You don't have to pay anything. And that's essentially how, you get to sort of realize that somebody has to pay for this, right? And if I have the means to sort of do it, I would do it. And that's the same approach that we have taken. If people feel that, yes, we are doing a good job and we are, we should continue what we are doing, they're welcome to put a tip. If people believe that right now their money is better off everything going to the cause, because the cause is more important than sort of any sort of a diversion to the platform, that is also fine. No questions asked.
Sure. So Ujjwal has another question, and that will be the last question in the interest of time. But I have a follow-up on what was just asked. So, but you still have costs, right? You have staff. I think you have 50 staff or maybe more.
110.
110 staff you have the platform fee. And even if we are donating everything and we are saying nothing goes to Milaap still has a processing fee that it needs to process through payment gateways and so many other things. So so how do you meet that cost if you are making it free? I know there is tipping model, but there are two questions to my question. Do you get grants? That's one, to cover your thing. B, now that you've shifted from flat fee to a more pay as you pay whatever you like model, have you seen any difference in your overall money that the platform gets for itself, or has that been a non-issue?
Sure. So the first one, do we get grants? We don't get grants to run the ops of the business, which is essentially to pay for our staff and keep the platform upkeep, etc. We have never approached for taking grants. I think whatever we have received is in the form of in-kind, which I think all startups and all companies get, like some credits on the server side when you launch, etc. Right? That's more like sort of that's applicable for every company per se. So we have never. So answer first question. We have never raised grants for our operating expense. Whatever grants come in is essentially for a particular campaign or cause, etc., which is essentially then put to use there. Number two essentially is the question around, now that we have moved away from the fixed model, has that impacted it? I think the answer goes back to the first one, right? Like at an individual level, some of us may feel that maybe the money is better off going completely to the cause, right? But when it comes to the collective, and it has taken us 10 years to take that step, right? We didn't take it on day one, because of what we have done over the years. I think we are fairly, all things said and done, we continue to operate. We don't have issues around paying our staff. We pay our staff well, best in class that we could, sort of think about. So yeah, we have not faced an issue as such per se.
Sure, that's lovely. And the last question will come from Ujjwal, and then we'll call it a day.
Thank you so much, Rahul, for the opportunity. And congratulations, Anoj. I think someone always dreams of creating impact at global scale. You are one of those inspirers. Thank you so much. Just a quick question. I don't know if it's already covered, Anoj, but a lot of causes on your platform are, say, for example, cancer. Now it will be oxygen. But the same one campaign is able to raise 2 lakhs and someone is able to raise 2 crores. And I'm an FMCG marketer. So just trying to understand what is the best practice to market is the wrong word, but by lack of a better word, to market the cause and maximize the fundraising. Because how does some things connect, same theme connects emotionally very different. And here the connection you want to make is with people who are well-funded. And cancer might appeal to an IMD alumni in 2 different ways. And so I just want to understand some best practices, and thanks for using all these words from the corporate world. It is lack of a better word. I'm using these things like marketing and best practices.
I think we should use more of these words. I don't know why we always think of these terms as pariah when it comes to non-profits or whatever, for impact. I wouldn't even call it non-profits. I would call it for impact organizations, right? So I'm one of those who believes in, there's no, it's what is your purpose is essentially the question, right? Whether, everything else is tax code, right? Whether you're a company or a partnership or a, registered as a non-governmental organization. So not to divert there. So specifically to answer your question, like I said, there are only 2 things. Everything boils down to fundamentally 2 things when it comes to raising money, right? 1, do I know the person who is in need, right? And 2, do I know the person or know of the person who is asking for my assistance, right? Every campaign for that matter, whether some campaigns raise 2 crores or some campaigns raise 5 lakhs or some campaigns raise whatever the amount, it boils down to this 2 questions, right? And there are some sort of sort of principles that are applicable across, which means if you want to raise a particular amount, you will know that you need X number of people to support you, right? So let's say if you want to raise 1 lakh, for example, overall IIM, whatever, batchmates who are coming together to raise, 1 lakh, it probably would be solved by just 5 of you chipping in 20,000 rupees each, and you would probably raise. But if you want to raise 1 crore, right, that number is not going to be 20,000 rupees per person. That number is on an average is going to be, probably smaller. It's going to probably be 5,000 rupees, right? And now take off, it's not IIM alumni who are, coming together to raise money. Let's say it's just, I'm just raising money from general public and my own set of friends. The average would come down further, which essentially means you need to reach more people. So what is, universal is the number of people that you have to sort of reach. And that's essentially how some campaigns end up raising 10x and others don't. It's about how many people get to see it. And when it comes to how many people get to see it, again, the simple premise is distributed, right? How many people are helping me to get my campaign out to so many, right? So I, as a person, might have 500 friends on Facebook, 500 contacts on WhatsApp, or so on. So, right. So even if I were to sort of put it on Facebook, and even if I were to send a broadcast to all of them, the reach is not going to be more than 400, 500 people. I mean, mutually inclusive, etc. But I have 10 friends who are equally vested about this, and they are going to sort of help me also get that word out. Now that number becomes from 400 to 4,000, right? I have 25 people who are coming together to help me do this, then the number goes to 10,000, right? So it's a question of how many people that you can reach, and how many people you can reach is a function of how many people are working with you, or how many people are vested in the same cause as yours. Taking this as their own, and sort of getting that get that outreach. So that's essentially the simple premise of crowdfunding for a large part. Of course, there are nuances, there are exceptions. There are things that go what you call as viral and all of those. I mean, that's a discussion for another day. But if you ask me, for 90 people, it's the simple premise. How many people get to see your story? And individually as a person, you can only reach only so many more. So, so much. So you have to sort of not just, even when you are raising money, you need to have a team that helps you raise money, a team, a group, a bunch of people, whatever you call it, who consider this as their own cause, their own initiative, right? Making people feel that they are vested in this is the key reason why some crowdfunding campaigns succeed and some, or considerable number of them don't.
Correct. So Anoj, I think viral marketing is what you're saying. I really get it. So, and you're saying get to know who are the sneezers who will make it viral, and for that you said, I think, knowing who is aligned to that cause. Someone who feels for the cause is the one who will actually take the effort to make it. Thank you so much, Anoj. I think you really hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So thank you, Anoj. Thank you so much. And I have got 3 takeaways from your talk. Number 1, technology is an enabler, and the bigger challenge is behavioral. So it is difficult for people to ask, but it is even more difficult for people to ask their friend that they would like to help them, because that is even one more additional layer of inhibition. So as a platform, Milaap is actually decreasing that inhibition that people may have to ask as well as to give. Now, other thing, while you're decreasing one thing, you are increasing something. What are you increasing? You're increasing the trust, right? Because people donate because of the trust issue. So you have brought trust into the equation, and I would like to personally call you the broker of trust, because that is essentially the backbone of how this whole thing is working, because you have brought people who can basically say, hey, your campaign is on Milaap, I trust it. That kind of confidence that people get. And even in Singapore, we have been getting these WhatsApp messages where people have been sending WhatsApp forwards, asking people to send money because they would send it for XYZ cause, and then the person simply blocks you once they get the money. So so that trust is important thing. And the last thing is, which was very subtle in your messaging, which was about perseverance. It took you 3 years to get to that 1 crore mark, and then another 4 years for you to get to that 10 crore mark, which is basically 7 years from the beginning. And only now you are doing things at the scale that probably you envisioned that you would achieve in year 1. So I do appreciate you giving that subtle message to a lot of people here who want to be entrepreneurs, a lot of people who want to do whatever they want to pursue in their life. So thank you so much for that. If any of you want to know the personal story of Anuj, which was not exactly in the scope of discussion that we had today, how he actually thought about things and how he set up Milaap, then there is a book you can pick up in India. It's called From Engineering to Ikigai, which I have authored with input from Anuj. And he mentions about his journey there. It was supposed to be released about now, but we are delaying the release because of COVID. And if you're in Singapore, then his story is covered in You Know the Glory, Not the Story, which would be hitting the stands very soon as well. So thank you so much, Anuj, for that. And with that, I'll pass on to Sneha to close the proceedings.
Sure. Thanks, Rahul. Thanks, Anoj, for your time. Milaap is doing a great job in making donor and receiver meet through this platform and bridge the gap. And a request to all the audience, Milaap is doing a great job on the due diligence aspect as well. So we can donate at our convenience and trust. And what I found interesting is we can donate, and if at all we found any issues or doubt regarding the cause, we can also ask for a refund. So identify a cause and please donate with a free mind. And thank you, participants, for all the amazing questions. And ardent request on behalf of Gyanalogy, if you found this session useful, please do like and share this video, which is also available at facebook.com/Gyanalogy. Mask up, stay safe, stay home, and please donate.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me here, Rahul Singh.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.